Jerusalem is all astir. We in Bethany just heard the news. The tomb is empty. There's rumors going around that the soldiers said the disciples came and stole the body of Jesus while they were asleep. But others said that there were some women who saw Jesus. I don't know what to believe. I'm so confused. I'm perplexed. My emotions are just all mixed up. I need to stop. I need to process. I need to think. Will you help me? I'm an extrovert and I think by talking. Will you be my sounding board? Let me begin at the beginning. My name is Martha. I live with my brother and sister in a very small village called Bethany. It's located on the eastern side of the Mount of Olives. It's a lovely village. The name Bethany means house of dates because we have date palm trees. We have olive trees and pomegranate trees and oak trees. It's a beautiful wooded area in the glen, just down two ridges on the eastern side of Mount Olives. It's a beautiful village, a small one with about 600 people. Our lives were just mundane, ordinary lives until about 2 years ago. There was a preacher from Nazareth that came by. Oh, I knew there was something special about him. As soon as I saw him, his face was so filled with compassion and peace. His teachings were like no others. He talked about his Father as being close and real and divine. He talked about his kingdom. His followers just loved him and hung to his words. He made his headquarters in Capernaum, which is the northern shore of Galilee. But when he came to Jerusalem, I welcomed him to stay with us here in Bethany. I love serving him. I'm a doer. I'm an extrovert. Well, there was one day that I guess I didn't like it as much as usual. You see, there was a large group of his disciples, and I was preparing supper for them all. And my sister, Mary, she was sitting with all of the disciples and Lazarus and just sitting at his feet, listening to every word that he was saying. She wasn't helping me. And I was getting a little upset. I was making noise in the kitchen. I was banging the pots and pans, trying to get her attention so I could say, "Come on, help me." But she was not hearing a thing. Her attention was all on Jesus. I felt myself getting a little bit stirred up, I must admit. Until I couldn't take it any longer, I stormed right in and I said to Jesus, "Jesus, tell my sister to come and help me. I'm serving alone." I thought he'd understand. I thought he'd take my part. But instead, He just looked at me with those eyes that pierced through and said, Martha, Martha, you are worried about many things, but only one thing is needed. And Mary has chosen the better part, and it won't be taken from her. I felt a little put down. I returned to the kitchen and didn't bang the pots and pans around, but thought about his words and just went on my way. Jesus, he had a way with words. He had a way to communicate and speak. So many things happened in the last week even. 1 week ago was a glorious day. It was an exciting day. We were in our village and 2 of his disciples came in and they began to untie a colt. So we asked them, "What are you doing?" And they responded that the master had need of the colt. But this colt had never, ever been ridden. It wasn't broken. So we were curious. We followed afar until we saw Jesus get onto the colt. And you know what? That colt never bolted, never moved, just as if he knew that the one sitting on him was his master. Very calmly, he walked down the rough trail, down the other side of Mount Olive. And people got excited. They began to throw their coats. And you know that little colt didn't even buck when they began to yell, "Hosanna! Blessed is the King of Israel who comes in the name of the Lord." He didn't bolt when they took the branches off of the trees and started to wave them in their face. My, it was amazing. I didn't go all the way into Jerusalem because I had to go back and cook for the disciples. They were going to return. So when they came back, the disciples told me that the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes were not too pleased with this action. They did not like the people yelling out, and the children even sang his praises in the temple. They told Jesus to tell them to stop. Jesus said, if the people and the children stopped praising, that the rocks themselves would cry out praises. The disciples also told me that Jesus went into the temple area and threw the tables of the money changers down and said to them as he chased them out of the courts, "My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." Oh, I just remembered something that might help. The night before that, we were having a special dinner for Jesus and his disciples and for my brother Lazarus. And while we were having the dinner and I was serving, that's my pride. I like to serve. I really like to serve. But while I was serving, my sister Mary came in, and as they were reclined at table, she took an alabaster jar and broke it on the feet of Jesus. The ointment just filled the air. The aroma just permeated all the house. Well, the disciples were kind of disturbed at this, and Judas Iscariot, he said, "Why is this waste? This could have been sold and the money given to the poor." He didn't really say it because he was concerned about the poor. He really was a thief. He kept the treasury and he kind of helped himself to the money in the bag. But something was said there that was important. Jesus said about Mary that she was doing this for his burial. For his burial? Was Jesus trying to prepare us for what happened on Friday? Did Mary sense and know? Did she hear something in his teachings? Why did she break that ointment and put it on his feet then? Oh, Friday was so different than that day they cried, "Hosanna." You see, Jesus wanted to have the Passover meal with his disciples on Thursday evening. And he went into Jerusalem. And after he left the supper, they went into Gethsemane. And while he was there, the high priest sent soldiers to arrest him. And in the early morning hours, they brought him to Pilate. They accused him of being an enemy of Rome. Pilate was confused. He saw nothing wrong with this righteous man, but they yelled out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" And they crucified him. They nailed him to the cross. He was buried in a tomb. I'm beginning to think. He was buried in a tomb. They say the tomb is empty. They say the women saw him alive. I'm remembering just a couple weeks ago, our brother was sick. Lazarus was sick, and Jesus was on the other side of the Jordan. We sent word to him and said, "Lazarus, whom you love, is sick." We thought he'd come immediately. He didn't come. He didn't come. And when he did, he had been in the tomb dead for 4 days. I ran out to the edge of the town to greet him, and I said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." He said to me, "Your brother will live again." And I said, "I know he'll live again in the resurrection at the end of time." And he said, these words, I'm the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever lives and believes in me will never die. Then he asked me this question, do you believe this? And I said, yes, I believe that you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. He rose. He performed a miracle with my brother. We went to the tomb and he told the men to roll the stone away. And he cried out, Lazarus, come forth. And my brother came forth, all bound up in his burial clothes. And Jesus said, loose him. I'm beginning to understand. I'm beginning to see. Those soldiers were Roman soldiers. They said that they had fallen asleep. If they had fallen asleep while they were on duty, the Roman law would require that they would be executed. And they're walking around saying the disciples stole the body. That's a lie. That's not true. I believe those ladies, I believe the women really did see Jesus. And Mary, my sister, she was always at the feet of Jesus. She was always listening. Oh, I was listening from the kitchen. But I was too busy doing and serving Jesus that I really didn't hear. Mary heard. She understood. She gave the best she had. She prepared him for his burial. But I didn't understand. I didn't see. Oh God, forgive me for being so busy. Forgive me for not sitting at your feet and choosing the better part.